Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. More specifically, in this instance, the work in progress Sega Saturn Core, because SRG320 is back from a pseudo Christmas vacation, or at least I'm guessing he was taking one, because we now have a massive core update for January. It's got a lot of game improvements, it's got a lot of new code, and it's got a lot of new fun to talk about. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. But right off the top, my most favorite improvement of this core, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be stoked as well, is going to be graphical fixes for Radiant Silvergun, because this is probably the de facto best shmup on Sega Saturn depending on who you ask. It is just one of those quintessentially classic arcade games that came over to Sega Saturn as an absolute arcade perfect conversion, because the original ran on the Sega Titan Video, which is basically the same hardware as I discussed last week. And this game did have some graphical bugs, and in the patch notes on GitHub on both of the different VDP1s and VDP2s, SRG320 left notes on what improved, and Radiant Silvergun was mentioned as one of them. And now going through this game, playing it, I can absolutely say if there are any visual glitches or issues whatsoever, I have not noticed a single one of them. I'm sure a lot of people are going to play through this game and look for them, so if you see anything in the footage that looks amiss, do leave me a comment down below, because for me personally, this looks like an absolutely perfect image, and if I put Radiant Silvergun in my Saturn, I would expect to see the exact same thing. And because the core is performing so well and MiSTer has such low latency when you're hardwired in or with a good actual wireless controller, playing Radiant Silvergun on the core is every bit as good as hooking it up to a Sega Saturn and a CRT television like I have next to me as I record these videos, and that's all I ever want. Because a game as difficult as this, you absolutely do not want to have any control issues or any latency in the controls or in the core, or else it's going to be even harder than it already is, and trust me, it is not an easy game. And the gameplay experience I'm getting here on Radiant Silvergun is absolute perfection, so much so that if you want to see a long-term 10-minute video just on how this one game performs, leave me a comment down below and I'll make it for you guys. But honestly, Radiant Silvergun is one of the games that gets tested basically every core, because there have been some issues that have not been resolved as of yet, and if the notes don't say that it's fixed, people still go in and check it out and report back on Mr. Discord just to see what they found. Now today, everything seems to be working perfectly, and that is absolutely incredible, and just goes to show how hard SRG320 has been working on this core, because I've said many times before, the Sega Saturn is not a simple piece of hardware. With VDP1 and VDP2 as well as the dual CPUs, there is a lot of stuff to work in tandem to make sure everything is running well. And if you go into GitHub and look at all the actual code line changes, they number over 100 in this instance, so there are a lot of fundamental differences between this core and the last core that we talked about on the channel, and it is just absolutely impressive. I would say that Radiant Silvergun, if there's any issues whatsoever, I can't find it, but it feels like it's playing 100% accurate to a real Sega Saturn console, and trust me, this is not the type of game you want to buy today if you already don't have a copy in your collection. It is going to be absolutely expensive, getting close to a rent payment depending on where you live. And everything here, from the warnings all the way up to the bosses coming up, seem to look good to my eyes, and that is always the fun thing. It's not just looking for visual glitches, it's just getting a sense of how games play on the core. With a game like this that is so demanding on the player and your reflexes and the inputs, it's great to see that Radiant Silvergun seems to be playing exactly as I would expect. It is 10 out of 10 hard. I'm not very good at it, but damn it, do I love the game, and do I love how it's performing on the core today. It seems to be perfect, but if you see anything different, do leave me that comment down below. Because trust me, it takes a lot more eyes than my two to make sure every single thing looks good. The viewership here finds glitches that I never even noticed. Now moving on to another game that's seen improvements that I don't think I've ever actually tested on the entirety of the Sega Saturn testing series is going to be Snatcher. I believe the last time I tried to play this game maybe was some months ago, and it would freeze when I would try to boot it up. But honestly, it's been such a long-term test of this core, 2 years now, that it could have been 18 months ago. My time frame is absolutely skewed. And if you've never played Snatcher before, it is one of the best visual novel games that Hideo Kojima ever made, and it is one of those games. It's absolutely special, and you should definitely check it out. The best part is it now runs on the core, and it seems to be flawless, and trust me, there are translations out there as well for you, so you don't have to play it in Japanese. But this game has so much style, it has so much substance, and it really does kind of lead into Police. That's one of the best games of all time in my opinion. It is definitely the type of title that you should check out. It also has an absolutely incredible soundtrack. Of course it does, this Hideo Kojima game, so go ahead and listen to the sound quality on the core for 45 seconds, and I'll be right back with more. my opinion, it's absolutely impossible to go wrong if you add the cyberpunk genre to a saxophone and throw some jazz out the back end. And trust me, Snatcher has an absolutely amazing soundtrack, and it sounds great coming out of the core. And as far as the gameplay is concerned, it looks exactly like it stood on Sega Saturn, which is to say rudimentary at best, because this game got its life started all the way back on the MSX and the PC-88, and definitely was upgraded along the way to new platforms. But this is something that really started its life long before the Sega Saturn ever existed, and it just happens to have a port here. There's also a port for PlayStation 1 as well as PC Engine CD, which is one of those classic games, and now today on the core it is working so much better. But let's switch out to the next game in the testing series, Nights into Dreams. This also got some graphical improvements, and we're going to kind of go through and look at just how good it looks right now and talk about how granular some of these changes can be, because the patch notes talked about the water in the first level of the game, so we're going to go ahead and look at that close up in just a moment. But honestly, I never even realized there's anything wrong with how the water was drawing on Nights into Dreams the last time I took a look at it, because honestly you fly by it so quickly you would probably never actually even look at it in normal gameplay. You'll see it's right down there, and we'll get a close-up in just a moment. But what I really want to talk about is just how absolutely perfect this game now looks, from the textures to the polygons to the performance, frame rate, controls, and everything else. You could put this in somebody's hand, the controller, and not show them what console they were playing on, and I do not think you'd find anyone who could guess whether or not they were playing on real Sega Saturn hardware or if they were playing on the MiSTer FPGA Core. So let's pop down here and take a look at the water. It's kind of hard to stay still in the game, but I'll do my best. Something about the water has been improved in this core, and that's how small and granular the changes can be sometimes. One little effect wasn't working correctly, so SRG320 goes in and dials it in, and I did look at some real comparisons on real hardware captures that I have in my archive, and the water down there now looks exactly like it should compared to real hardware. So whatever was going on in the previous cores, I never would have noticed, and I think 99 out of 100 of you never would have noticed, but now it is one-to-one with real hardware, and that just goes to show how far this core has truly come. You can sit down and play Nights into Dreams from start to finish and not even consider the fact they're playing it on FPGA Core versus real Sega Saturn hardware. And now if I do want to play Nights into Dreams in the future, I'm not going to take my game off the shelf and put it into my Saturn. I'm just going to load the core up and start playing. And here's your second soundtrack sample, because Nights into Dreams has an amazing soundtrack. 35 seconds, I'll be back with a little bit more footage to look at and a little bit more bugs to talk about. Zero notes on the audio quality there. The music, the sound effects, everything sounds exactly like Nights into Dreams should sound, and everything looks like Nights into Dreams should look, and that's just because pretty much every single bug in this game has been fixed up. And of course, it's one of those games that if you are a fan of Sega Saturn, you've definitely played at least once. But again, as I watch through this footage after playing the game, there is nothing here that seems amiss. I can't find a stray pixel, I can't find a broken effect. There is nothing about this first stage that makes me think I'm playing anything other than real Sega Saturn hardware, and I am the one that captured the footage on MiSTer FPGA, so I would know. But that's the current situation with the current Sega Saturn core. It's got a ton of new lines of code, and of course people are going to go through and test other games that have glitches that aren't listed in the patch notes to see if those have been improved as well. And if you do want me to do a viewer request testing video, go ahead and leave me some games you want to see updates on down below. Maybe I'll get to that. But go ahead over to MiSTer Discord, grab the most recent core from Unstable Nightlies, and have fun. Bye bye.